Hello and welcome to another video on this channel in which we're going to focus on real estate and interior photography. And to keep things simple, I'm just going to be using the cell phone for this shoot. This way I'm not distracted by a camera moving around the tripod, so it's much quicker. Also, when I usually arrive at my hotels currently doing my travels, I like to take some photos very quickly before we move in, and this is usually done quickly with a cell phone, so I'm a bit used to it now. That doesn't mean that if you're going to a professional shoot, you should just bring the cell phone there, bring the equipment you need for the job. You might need more megapixels. A tripod is always helpful for a real estate shoot because you can make fine adjustments. But yeah, as I said, those photos here I usually take just for my blog, my travel blog, so that's fine. And also it's fine to now show you some principles that you can apply to create good real estate photos. The reason for that video are my current travels, and I'm staying in many places, and I also look at many photos when I search the different listings before I book something. And what I noticed is that around 80% of those Airbnbs and hotels don't have very good photos that really convey a feel for the place they're renting out. And yeah, that's very sad also for me as a customer, because I don't know what I'm booking. So usually I skip through them until I find one which has kind of decent photos, and then if the reviews are also good, that's usually the place I go. But sometimes photos are so bad that it's really hard to book a place. So those hotels and Airbnbs would do really good at maybe hiring a professional photographer to create some better photos. And we as the professional photographers, we need to be able to deliver. So that's what we're gonna cover in this video. And the first thing is, when you arrive at the place, usually get an overview, look at the different rooms and see what there is to work with, and also directly use that time to declutter maybe a kitchen or something, some countertops, make some minor adjustments to clean up any mess that might be distracting later on. That's good to do right in the beginning. And once you have the overview, also think about the light. For example, if you have windows, at which time is the sun shining through them, might cast a nice shadow which you might want in your photo. For example, when I photograph those places, what I want is some warm light, because this makes those places look more inviting. And such light you usually get in the mornings and the afternoons. And we're going to use this place here for the example for the video now. And I already know that in the afternoon, around 2-3 o'clock, maybe 4, the sun is low in that direction, and it will be casting nice soft shadows into this space here, and that looks very nice and inviting. So that's something I want to use for this apartment, but you might do another shoot for some other apartment where you want completely different light. Even an overcast sky might be the right thing if you don't want any shadows, if you just want a very clean look without any distracting elements, and even a shadow could be distracting. So that depends on what you want to achieve. I want to go with soft light, so that's why I want to take the photos in a few hours. So now we're gonna wait, and then I'm gonna walk you through the shoot for maybe 1 or 2 photos I'm taking here, and later also we're gonna look at some very basic processing. We keep things simple, not only during the shoot, also during the processing. So let's go. Okay, so the light is pretty nice now. We have the low sun there in the background, which casts some nice directional light here, but it's not too harsh, so it's soft light, especially there in the kitchen. And for this example shoot, I want to show you how I photograph the kitchen space and also here the countertop and the outside space, because I think this is what makes this apartment special, and this is what I want to put in the photo. Also, there's a lot of clutter behind the camera and I don't want to move it away, so we're gonna focus solely on this area, which also means I can only shoot in one direction. So typically when I want to do some real estate or interior photography, I would try to get different angles, so shooting in one direction, then going to the other side of the room, photographing in the opposite direction. This cannot be done now because of the clutter, and that's also why I usually try to do those shoots right in the beginning when I get into a hotel. So quickly taking the cell phone, walking around, taking all those photos. But here, because I wanted to also film it, I had to wait a bit more. So let's focus on this space. So with the main camera, I already set up a shot which looks similar to what I want to photograph now with a cell phone. So we have basically those this huge door here where you look into the outside and then back through the counter into the kitchen again. And also here's the main way into the kitchen. And I think that's a nice shot because it combines the outside and the inside of the apartment. And also it will be the first shot, and then I move closer into the kitchen. So as I said, we're using the cell phone, using the Google with the normal camera app, which also has some automatic built-in HDR, which in some cases doesn't work, but yeah, for most of the time it's pretty okay. So I'm just gonna use it. Also, I'm using the wide angle, which is roughly 15 millimeters. It's perfect for real estate or interior photography. And an important thing, what I usually do when I take photos, I'm not shooting at eye level. So I usually go like somewhere between waist and chest height for the photos, just giving me enough height to see to the countertops. If they are a little higher, I move the phone a bit higher. If I just have furniture like chairs, I can go a bit deeper. This way I create a better balance between the ceiling and the floor. Okay, for now, enough talk. Let's get a little bit practical. I want to show you now what I do. So here you see my cell phone, and as a main shot, if I go too close, you won't see me anymore. So we're roughly at the right height here. So I'm moving in, I'm making sure I not cut here the bottom of that door and the top of that door. Here at the side, I'll leave a bit of space for the wall. I can later crop it in. And also to the left side here, we have a lot of greenery and the beautiful light. Important thing which I do, and this is very important for real estate photography, I try not to angle the camera, because this way I get those tilting lines, those keystoning also upwards. It's the same, so I always try to shoot straight. Now I don't have a level meter here like I have in the camera, but I can use this grid, which you hopefully see. So I have the 3x3 grid to roughly get the straight lines straight in the frame. And then I just take the photo. And also I noticed just in the background there's a window which I want to have open. So the wind just closed it, and yeah, that's something. Look for those little details. Now retake the shot. And I think that's it. That's the first shot. What I also do, I like to mix things up. So also let's get a vertical frame. For this I can move in a bit closer. Yeah, that's the first two shots, the horizontal and the vertical. Yeah, and mixing it up is a good idea if you want to create collages of your photos, or if you're even shooting for a magazine. You wouldn't do this with a cell phone, obviously, but yeah, I'm shooting for my little magazine, my blog, and yeah, there I want to create collages where I have vertical shots, horizontal shots, and the like. So now we're in the kitchen, and I want to continue the shoot now, showing more of the kitchen, because before we just saw, okay, there's the door into the kitchen. We saw part of this here, this area. Now I want to photograph it. And one thing, very important, remove some clutter if you're photographing such spaces. It's also why I usually do this when I enter the hotel first time, and not after I put all my clothes everywhere and also use the kitchen. Today I had to clean up a bit, but anyways, the counters are pretty clean and there's not too much clutter on them. That's important because you don't want to spend time or less time retouching it later. So especially when you use the cell phone. So that's important. Also now again with the perspectives, mix it up. As I said, horizontal, vertical, and we're gonna start with a vertical shot, and I'm gonna take a photo first using a bit of a perspective. So sometimes you can just shoot straight on like you see it now on the camera. If you have left and right, then you have nice leading lines here, for example, this countertop and this countertop. Also about the height of the camera. This camera, it's high enough to see on the top of this countertop. If I had it lower, you would basically see the bottom. That's not so good idea. Same counts, or same is true when I shoot with a cell phone. So not going too low. We don't want to have a too deep perspective here. Now I'm gonna take the photo, and In this direction, I think it looks better if I shoot a bit at an angle, and you'll see the photos soon. So we're also gonna look at the processing, because then I can include some straight lines here at the side. Also on this side, this line here, and then having a diagonal, so quite dynamic perspective. Also, I switched on those lights. This doesn't always work. So if you shoot with natural daylight, as I do, not all lights work, but those warm lights, I think they add a nice feature to the photo. So I switched them on. It's also something to think about and to experiment with. There are usually lights in the room. Switch them on, see how it looks, if the light balance works well with the natural light you're using. And then just take the photo. So I'm gonna do it now. So the first photo, I go a bit lower to get the right height here for the shot. And I said it, clean up the counter, but I forgot to remove this water bottle. Let's do it now and take the photo. So the first photo, I'll exclude the look outside. So I'm just gonna cut the photo. And then I'll move in a bit and include looking outside. You'll see this soon when we look at the photos. Again, I go a little deeper here, have the right perspective, and take the photo. I'll now do the same vertical, and then I think it's time to look at the photos in Lightroom and talk a bit about the editing, also a bit about the perspectives I used and what we can do to maybe correct them, because as I said, I use this little grid here, and even using it with a cell phone, it's not that easy. That's also why if you want to do real estate photography or interior photography, it's definitely a good idea to use a real camera with a tripod where you can make very fine adjustments, and then your camera will be in place. So here we are in Lightroom, and I've already made a selection of the photos which I'm gonna use for the set, for presenting this part of the apartment, and we're gonna go through them very quickly. Here's the first shot, the horizontal frame, where I basically show the inside and the outside both in one frame. And here I already see this side here, this part of the wall is a bit too distracting, so I'll likely crop it in a bit. I'll also crop in from the top, because this area is just an empty space, so this is distracting. But what I wanted to make sure in the field was to leave some space here, to not crop the door and at the bottom. That's a good idea if you're shooting real estate, to always give the elements in the frame some space, which also means try to avoid cutting them right away. You can later easily apply a crop in software if you want to cut off the top of the frame or the bottom, but if you can create a wide enough frame to avoid such a crop in camera, then do it. Now here's the second one, the vertical frame I shot, basically to mix it up, and I like this one much more because up here we have another diagonal, this wall is not so prominent, and also I have a very good balance between the outside and the inside. So for my blog I'll likely use this one. Now we continue. Here's the shot where I took a photo from the inside of the kitchen, also looking out. So I took this afterwards, after I removed the camera which was filming me. And you see here I have some nice leading lines down here, up there, from the corner, and also the countertop has some leading lines. Did another shot here which is straight on. This works if you have leading lines on both sides, so basically one from the top, one from this top, and those converge here in the middle. And the height of the camera is set based on this convergence point. So I moved it a bit higher to have this convergence point roughly in the middle. This creates a nice balance between the top of the frame and the bottom. So you can use this as a guideline when you set the height of your camera. If you have leading lines from both the bottom and the top, those diagonals, they will converge somewhere. And if this is roughly in the middle, this is often a good point of reference to create a balanced shot. Now here, another frame from the outside looking in. There's too much negative space outside here, so this is something where I would also crop in quite a lot, especially from the bottom and also from the sides. And finally, another vertical shot here for the interior of the kitchen. It's basically the same shot as the one I showed you before. Just here I have the cut right there. I'm not looking outside. I'm getting in more of the fridge and also nice diagonals. Here in the top is a lot of negative space and also this lens flare, which can be easily remedied. Maybe I would crop in a bit, but let's now for the editing focus maybe on 2 shots I took, and I will do a quick edit on this one and also on this one. For this photo here, the editing is very easy because I managed to get the camera straight, so there's no keystoning. I still do a bit of a crop, making sure I have this part here, this door frame, right in the center, and also cropping in a bit from this side because I don't need so much of that wall, but I want to leave it in, so a bit of the wall is good to frame the shot. So I'll try to get this roughly in the center, maybe a bit from the top here because this area, this part here, a bit distracting, so I might go with something like this here. Now I go into the basic adjustments, and since I shot with the camera app from Google, I just took JPEGs where I already get the HDR from Google. There's a lot of processing done in the app. The photos come out of it looking already quite good. So this also means I can't do too much here in terms of temperature and tint. Also the other settings I have to be careful not to make too harsh adjustments because it's a JPEG, it will break apart much faster than a RAW. It's also something you should do if you can shoot RAW, especially if you're on a professional shoot. Take RAW photos, bracket them so you can later blend. But for my use case here, the JPEGs are good enough, and I'll just slightly bring down the highlights, slightly bring up the shadows, maybe make it a bit warmer, but bring down the tint because there was some magenta creeping in. I'll also head into the curves, see if I can add a slight S-curve here to create a bit more contrast. But I think this is really all I want to do to this photo. This is already looking quite good, and it's very close to what the apartment looks like, also with the beautiful light here. For the other image, I'll not start with the cropping because this one I'll definitely bring over to Photoshop because there's some perspective distortion and I want to show you how to correct it. But I still sync over the settings I did to the other image. That's also very important. If you're shooting a series of images, make sure to sync all the settings, especially the color settings. Those images should look the same in terms of color, otherwise it will be unprofessional. So what I will not bring over is the crop. Everything else I'll just synchronize. This way the images look similar enough. For this image, as I said, I want to now fix the perspective and also here those lens flares at the top, the bottom, and also this lens flare. And I'll do this quickly in Photoshop. So let's right click, go to Edit in Adobe Photoshop. And fixing the perspective is very simple. Here I have the rulers. I just draw in some helpers from the side, and also from the top here for this counter. Now I double click on the layer, press OK. Control T brings up the transformation tool, and now if I press Control while grabbing such a handle, I can drag it out individually. So I'm now looking at this line here, and now if I draw down this line, I get this countertop a little more straight. So let's go down even further, something like that. And let's bring over this helper, make sure this line remains straight. I might draw out just a touch here, bring this one out even more, and this one down a bit more. So since I was shooting at an angle, I won't get every line straight. For example, this one here, those are basically converging, so this cannot be completely straight, but I'll pull down this one here to make this really converging. So this one will be at an angle and this one will be at a similar angle. This way the result looks convincing. Let's bring this up a bit. Yes, maybe I have to go with something like that. Press enter. Now I also want to crop this image. So for the vertical frame, I left the 4:3 because for verticals I think this looks better. But for the horizontal frame, I'll go with a 3:2, and I avoid cutting here the fridge. So I want more of the fridge. So if you cut something, furniture, make sure to leave enough of the furniture so it looks as if this cut was intentional. If you just have some pixel cuts, this never looks good. I rather do a crop up here of the frame. So let's pull this down a little bit, maybe something like that, and then press enter. Now let's quickly fix those lens flares, create a new layer, set it to mode soft light, grab brush, black brush, 10%, and just darken down this area, maybe even 20%. And also up here, just slightly darkening it, maybe also the sides, creating a slight vignette here. So something like that. What I also notice is here's kind of a bluish or magenta hue. So I grab a hue saturation layer and bring down the magentas, also lightness. I go to the blue, see if there's also some blue. Yes, I bring it down a bit, invert the mask, and I'll just apply it down here in this area and also up here. I definitely want to keep the blue on those frames because that's a nice feature of the apartment. So let's look at the before and the after. The only thing I need to fix now is this lens flare, which is easy also with the dodge and burn layer. Grab the soft black brush, 20%, one press here, shift click here, make it a bit smaller, even smaller, go to 10%. Yeah, that's a very quick job. I think I could do it a bit better if I spent more time, but well, that's it, the before and after. And here's the final photo, and I think it gives a good sense of the space, of the kitchen space, and combined now with the vertical photo, I think I can create a nice collage for this area of the apartment. Hope you liked this video. If so, leave a thumbs up, also leave comments, suggestions, and yeah, see you in the next video. Bye.